While the factors that were involved in this deadly flash flood are very similar to other tragic flash floods that have resulted in destruction across the hill country of Texas over many decades. This type of a flash flood is part of the climatology. It is part of the weather that unfortunately happens from time to time across the hill country of Texas because of the fact that you often can have slow moving storm systems that can produce thunderstorms that develop and then they don't move very fast. They produce copious downpours over the same areas for hours on end, resulting in significant flash flooding. Also, the other issue with the hill country is that there is steep elevation changes, lots of hills and valleys, and the water can pour off the hills into the valleys, into the creeks and streams, and cause water to rise and rivers and cause water to rise very quickly, as was the case in this scenario. And also, this part of Texas is in close proximity to atmospheric moisture, rich atmospheric moisture, deep feeds of moisture from the Gulf and also at times from the Eastern Pacific. And those factors conspiring together often result in destructive flash floods across this part of Texas. And that was the weather pattern that was in place late last week that resulted in these significant flash floods. This type of severe weather event, in terms of the dangerous flash flooding, the significant destructive flash flooding, it's part of the history of weather events that have occurred across this part of Texas. In fact, I call it the flash flood capital of the world because of the fact that there's such a propensity for these types of dangerous flash flooding events to happen in the hill country of South Central Texas. But also is the fact that a warmer atmosphere that we've been dealing with as a result of global warming has a tendency to produce more frequent and higher magnitude extreme rainfall events. So it is likely that this has always been a part of the climatology across South Central Texas, but also the risk for these events can be amplified not only in the hill country of Texas, but in other locations all around the world as a result of our changing atmosphere and our globe and a warming atmosphere. Just is easier for the atmosphere to hold higher levels of atmospheric moisture, making the risk for these extreme rainfall events even greater in the coming years. Notice the time difference between these flash flood warnings that were issued and the peak of the flash flooding that occurred in the Hunt, Texas area around 4:30 Central Time. There were several hours of advance notice, ample time for people to move to higher ground and for the local officials to take action in order to move people to safe areas. And so the question is, now that the warnings were there, the question now is what did local officials and the people that were responsible for safety at the camps, what action plans did they have for handling flash flooding, and what actions did they take? When flash flood warnings are issued, they're issued because there's an immediate risk to life and property. And that's the time that people and businesses need to take action in order to enhance safety and best protect people. And that's really, really critical in terms of receiving that warning and then taking the immediate action, not waiting for other reports to come in, not waiting for information from other sources. Meteorologists are issuing that warning because we've detected an immediate threat to life and property from rapidly rising water in the case of a flash flood situation. Flash flooding can happen very quickly. Many times survivors talk about how quickly the water rose. And we see from the observations along the Guadalupe River that this river, which is typically moving very slowly and might only be 3 feet in its water level at a particular location, rose quickly within an hour to a raging torrent of 30 feet of water that was 30 feet high. And that just well outside of its typical banks. That shows how quickly a life-threatening situation like this can escalate, and why it's so important to take immediate action when flash flood warnings are issued. The worst of the flooding occurred at night, and flash flooding and tornadoes and other severe weather that happen at night are especially dangerous because that's the time that many people are sleeping. And so that's another reason that it was so important for the RV establishments, the RV camps, the other camps, sport camps that were in the area, to have somebody designated to be 24/7 watching for weather warnings and taking the appropriate action. Organizations like that that have the safety of many people in their care at stake have to appoint a person at all times of the day or night to be receiving those weather warnings and then being able to take action on that. That's like how those organizations would handle physical security. Somebody always has to be making sure that people are safe and secure. Same thing as it relates to mitigating weather risk